Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from chapter 7. Text 19, page 347, page 347. Bhavanam Jamanam Ante Yadavam Mam Prabhadyante Vasudeva Savamiti Tamaha Sudurlabha. Word for word. Bhavanam, many. Jamanam, repeated birth and death. Ante, after. Janabham, one who's in full knowledge. Mam, unto me. Vajate, surrenders. Vasudeva, the personality Godhead, Krishna. Sarvam, everything. Iti, thus. Sa, that. Maha, Atma, great souls. Sudurlabha, very rare. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada. After many births and deaths, he is actually acknowledged, surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes, all that is, such a great soul, is very rare. Purport. The living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals, after many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. While one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning toward impersonalism. But when further advances, he can understand that there are activities in spiritual life, and these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality Godhead and surrenders to Him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Krishna's mercy is everything, that He is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from Him. He realized the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and realized that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. This verse is very nicely explained in the 3rd chapter, verses 14 and 15 of Svetasvatara Upanishad. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it says, Navai vacho na sakshushi na sotrami na manashti achaksate prana iti vaksate pano hi evai tani sarvani bhut bhavanti. In the body of a living being, neither the power to speak, the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is life which is the center of all activities. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the Supreme Personality of God, Sri Krishna, is the primary entity in everything. In this body there are powers of speaking, of seeing, of hearing, of mental activities, etc. But these are not important if not related to the Supreme Lord. And because Vasudeva is all-pervading, everything is Vasudeva, the voice surrenders in full knowledge. This is also mentioned in the Bhagavad-Gita, verse 7:17 and 11:40. Om Arginatram Dasya Jinanjana Sakaya Sakshurumitam Jena Tadmei Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namarobi Stam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Garamayam Tanti Swapadantikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasana Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, we will welcome everyone to the Bhagavad-Gita class, those who are here in person and those who are listening in Radio Land. A few days ago was the Ekadasi, the advent of Bhagavad-Gita. So many devotees read the whole Bhagavad Gita, verse by verse, and they may have experienced an experience that you don't get by reading any mundane book. When I was searching for spiritual life, I found out about the Bhagavad Gita, but I hadn't actually read it. That was when it first came out. I read parts of it, but I somehow Super Soul told me. I went to one bookstore which had thousands of books, 2 or 3 floors of thousands of books. And I went to the religious section, and I saw that there were many copies of Bhagavad Gita. But I understood that there was only one book in that whole bookstore worth reading, and that was the Bhagavad Gita as it is by Srila Prabhupada. Because other people translated Bhagavad Gita and give their commentary. But Prabhupada says, why they're sticking their nose in other people's business? People read the Bhagavad Gita, give commentaries that are not qualified to do so. They're materially motivated. Therefore, they give a wrong interpretation and misguide people. Or usually they give some Mayavadi interpretation, or they say that the battlefield is the body and the Pandavas are the 5 senses. They make some kind of speculation. But we don't have to speculate, because we have Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhupada wrote it, purported it, so we accept it as a book which is universally acceptable. It is not that, it's not a Hindu book. It's not Hinduism. If you look in the index, the word Hinduism is not even there. It's not even mentioned one time in the Bhagavad-Gita. Sometimes people think that we become Hindus and that they're afraid of the Bhagavad-Gita. But generally people that call themselves Hindus are Mayavadis, are impersonalists. But the whole Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, so there's no question of something being impersonal. It's a conversation that Krishna spoke Bhagavad-Gita on the Battle of Kurukshetra in 1 hour. But somehow 700 verses, it took 3 hours or 2.5 hours to read the whole verses of all the Bhagavad-Gitas. But by Krishna's Yogamaya potency, he made it short because the warriors were ready to fight on both sides. He didn't want to have to make them wait too long. So he spoke this to Arjuna. The whole idea is to get convince Arjuna that he should fight. Because Arjuna said that when he saw who was on the battlefield, he didn't want to fight. And it was rightly because he had to fight against his teachers, his relatives, his friends. So many people were on the wrong side, and he had to kill them. And no one would want to do that. But because Krishna came, yada yada dharma shagani bhavata bharata, vinijaya sadhunam vinishaka duskritam, Krishna comes to this world to reestablish religious principles and to relieve the burden of the earth. At that time, the earth was overburdened by sinful people, and Mother Earth was suffering. So, to alleviate the burden of the earth, Krishna comes, and the Battle of Kurukshetra was arranged, but 640 million people would be killed to relieve the burden of the earth. But that also wasn't complete until Krishna arranged for the Yadu dynasty to leave this planet, and then the planet was free from burden. So, and although the Bhagavad Gita was spoken 5,000 years ago, it's ever fresh. It never loses its potency, and it's never loses its actual power to make people devotees. This month is the marathon. There's a marathon going on all over the world where devotees are going out longer than usual and in different places to distribute more and more books, especially this time of year because it's the Christmas season. Of course, nobody celebrates Christmas in India. Maybe some Christians in South India do, but most of India, in this part, UP, northern India, there's no Christmas. But in America, the West, many people are Christians, and Christmas means you have to go to the shop, you have to get presents to give to your relatives, to spend a lot of money. So this time of year, the shops stay open longer than usual, and people have all their money, more money, and it's easier to give them books. So when devotees understood this, they started the Christmas Marathon, and Prabhupada was pleased with this activity. For 1 month, the Christmas Marathon, devotees work very hard, but they still have to chant their rounds. But they don't necessarily have to have a full morning program like they usually do. But still, even if they don't finish their rounds, they have to make up their rounds. And there's nothing that replaces chanting 16 rounds. So the Bhagavad Gita and this verse is not an easy book to understand. One time Advaita Acharya read one verse in the Bhagavad-Gita, in chapter 13 or 14, and he couldn't understand it. So he didn't take his prasadam, he went to sleep without taking his prasadam. So Lord Chaitanya came to him in a dream and said, Acharya, get up, take your prasadam, why are you fasting? And he explained to him that this verse wasn't a Mayavadi or impersonal. It said the Lord didn't have any hands or legs or eyes or this. It wasn't an impersonal common verse, but it was meant that Krishna doesn't have any material hands or legs or eyes. And in the same way, there was one Arjuna Acharya who was writing a commentary on Bhagavad-Gita, and he came across this verse where Krishna says that I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. So he couldn't understand that. He thought, how is this possible? Krishna can maybe send some of his agents or through his power, he can do this, but he wouldn't do it personally. So he took a red pen, he crossed out aham, I come. And then he had to go to the market. Every day he would go to the market and beg for some sabjis to cook for his wife. But that day the market was closed, but he didn't know it. So when he went to the market, two beautiful boys came to the house and knocked on the door. His wife answered the door and said, what do you want? He said, well, these two boys said that the market's closed today, so we brought you a basket of sabjis. But then she saw that there was two scratch marks on their foreheads. Some say on their back, some tell the story a little different. But either way, there was two scratch marks on the boys. So she said, well, who has done this to you? You're such cute little boys. Who would dare to hurt you? And they said, well, your husband did this to us. And then they left the basket and went away. So the wife was very disturbed. And generally in Vedic culture, the wife is not supposed to take prasadam until the husband takes first, and then she takes last. But she was so disturbed that she was taking prasadam when her husband came back. So she said, well, what are you doing? Why are you taking prasadam? She said, well, how you could be so cruel to those two boys? And he said, what two boys? He said, there was a boy that was white and there was a boy that was black, and they had scratch mark on their forehead. And they said, you did that. And then he could understand that he made a mistake. When Krishna says aham, that Krishna can actually do that. So he went to his book and erased it when he crossed out. So in this way, the point is the Bhagavad-Gita is not so easily understandable by the common people or by devotees. But if you have to be in the pure goodness, with the mode of passion, the ignorance, you can't understand Bhagavad-Gita, and you have to be in Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness. Then you can understand more and more what Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, everything. The more you Krishna says, Te sam satati yuktanam bhajatam piti purvakam. Those who are in me, I give the intelligence to come to me. So the more you surrender to Krishna, the more Krishna will reward you. He says, as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So this verse is speaking about surrender. Surrender means to give up oneself or to give in to another power. So this surrender is there throughout the Bhagavad-Gita. I went to Radha Damodar and Ekadasi, and the first man I met, I said, have you read the Bhagavad-Gita? He said yes, and I asked him which verse was the most important verse. And most people haven't read the Bhagavad-Gita and don't know the verses. But this man said, Sarvadharma Parikshaja, Mamekam Saranamraja, Ham Tam Sarvabhameyo Mokshashami Masuchaha. So Krishna is talking about surrender throughout this chapter, throughout the Bhagavad-Gita. And surrender is not so. It says here, Bahunam Jamanam Te, after many, many births, not only one lifetime. But there are other verses in Bhagavad Gita that talk about surrender. And therefore Arjuna in 3:30 says, surrender all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, and with no claims to proprietorship, free from lethargy, fight. That's in the 3rd chapter. Then in the 7th chapter, it says, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful actions, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Then, in the 7th chapter, it says, Daiviyesha gunamai mama maya duratya mameva yapaprajante mayam taranti te. This divine energy of mine, consisting of 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. Then in the 10th chapter, it says, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Then again, as it says, anyway, there's some of the verses that lead up to this Sarvadharma Parikshaja Mamekam Saranam Jaha. And also in the Bhakti-Rasa-Samhitam Sindhu talks about Bali Maharaj, who is he attained perfection by dedicating everything to the lotus feet of Krishna. Bali Maharaj was the king of the demons, and he had taken over Indra's post. So the demigods were defeated by the demons. There's always a battle going on between the demigods and the demons. So Vamadev, the Lord, came to protect the demigods, came in the form of a dwarf Brahmana, small Brahmana boy. And he went to Bali Maharaj to beg charity. And Bali Maharaj says, I have so many material opulence, you can beg whatever charity you want, I will give you. So he said, Vamadev said, I just want 3 paces of land, 3 steps of land. So Bali Maharaj said, well, this is not a very intelligent question. I can give you so many things. Why are you only asking for this? But Sukacharya was his spiritual master, but he was materially motivated. And he was worried about his maintenance, so he told Bali Maharaj, don't give this boy anything. This Brahmin boy is Lord Vishnu. And if you give him 3 steps of land, he's going to take everything away from you, and you're going to become a penniless beggar. And then I won't be able to get my maintenance money. So he gave the wrong instructions to Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj rejected him as his spiritual master. So Bali Maharaj did surrender everything and became a penniless beggar. But because he did that, he got a position in the hellish planet, Patala, and Lord Vamadeva became his doorman. And Prahlad Maharaj was also there. And when Ravana came to attack him, Vamadeva kicked Ravana 80,000 miles. I don't know, he kicked him somewhere in outer space or what, but it says 80,000 miles in the 5th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this way, surrender is an example of full surrender, not to hold on to anything. When the Pandavas had a gambling match with the Kurus, they got cheated out of every time they lost. They were throwing dice, so those Kshatriyas do that. So when the Kshatriyas challenged to some kind of competition, you can't refuse. So the Pandavas weren't very expert at throwing dice, but they accepted the proposal. So they lost everything. They lost their kingdom, they lost everything. They lost their wife, Draupadi. And she was in the next room. So the Kurus, somehow they thought they were a little motivated and decided to have some fun, that they were going to disrobe Draupadi in public. And of course, a chaste and faithful woman or wife is never to be in front of anyone without clothes on. When Krishna stole the garments of the gopis, he was 5 years old. They were between the ages 11 and 14. But from their childhood, they had a desire to have Krishna as their husband. So in order for Krishna to fulfill their desire, he went to the bank of the Yamuna where the gopis were bathing. They would go there daily, worship Katyani for the month to get Krishna as their husband. Generally, that's women are supposed to do that, worship the goddess Katyani to get a good husband. But they worship the Yoga Maya Katyani, not the Mahamaya Katyani. So Krishna told all their garments and went up in a tree. He said, now all of you please come and take your garments. But they said to Krishna, don't play with us like this. We are feeling cold by being in the water, and we're naked. We can't come out of the water in front of you. And they said, if we're going to complain to Nanda Maharaj. And then they said, well, Krishna said, well, Nanda Maharaj, he's too old to do anything. They said, well, then we're going to complain to Kamsa. And he said, well, Kamsa's not going to be able to do anything. So eventually, he told them to come out of the water one at a time, and to fulfill their desire to have Krishna as their husband, he got to see them with their birthday suit. But it's not a mundane story. It's Krishna fulfilled their desire to have a husband as the gopis as their husband. So they were surrendered souls, so they did what Krishna asked, and then Krishna gave back their clothes, and they were feeling ecstasy that they got the darshan of the Lord, and he fulfilled their desire. But he also fulfilled their desire at another time when he had the Rasa Lila. So only Krishna can do these things because Krishna is not in any way contaminated by the modes of material nature, and he can't be affected like an ordinary person. So Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad-Gita, and here it's talking about being in full knowledge. So it may take more than one lifetime to become fully Krishna conscious. He says here, after many, many births. In the material world, most people think that you only have one life to live. And so eat, drink, and be merry, because there's nothing after this life. And when a person said, well, beg, borrow, steal, but get ghee, because ghee used to be the standard of opulence. And well, people don't know that nowadays. Most people think oil is better than ghee. But anyway, here it says life after life. So it's not that life stops at the time of death. It's a misconception. People think that once you take a human form of life, you don't have to take birth. Nothing happens after life. There's nothing. You become zero or void. But the soul, here it says that because the soul's in the body, they have the power to do so many things. And because Krishna is giving the power to all our activities. We're not independent. If Krishna Raki ke Mari ke Mari ke Raki ke, if Krishna wants to kill somebody, no one can save that person. If Krishna wants to save someone, no one can kill that person. When Pradyumna was born to Rukmini, she was the first son of Rukmini. One Sambar demon heard a prophecy that this boy was going to kill him. So he disguised himself like Putana as a beautiful woman and entered the house of Rukmini and took the baby, stole the baby, and threw him in the ocean, thinking he would drown. But because Krishna wanted to save him, he was swallowed up by a big fish. And that fish was sold in the market to the Sambar demon, to servants of the Sambar demon. And when they went to cut open the fish to make a fish preparation, the demons are accustomed to eating meat and fish and all kinds of abominable things. So fish is certainly not very pleasant, since they smell bad. If you go to Jagannath Puri, many people have their occupation of catching fish and cooking fish and eating fish. It's not very palatable. It says in Chaitanya Bhagavat, if you eat fish, it's equivalent to eating all other kinds of meat. So, but the point is that when they cut open the baby, they cut open the fish, they found the baby, Virginia, he was still alive. And because Krishna wanted to save him, he couldn't be killed. So in this way, we're talking about how it goes down the soul. It goes from Denosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehan jara pratir diras tachana muyate, from boyhood to youth to old age. Then again at the time after old age, one again accepts another body. We have the changing body exhibited in the museum, Prabhupada's museum on the first floor. You can see the body going through the changes, but the body is active only because the life force is there. The soul is there. And as soon as the soul leaves the body, then the body becomes dead and has no life. But the scientists want to say that life comes from chemicals. So we challenge the scientists that if the life comes from chemicals, then you just find out what chemicals are missing in a dead body and bring it back to life. Well, of course, they can't do that. But they say, in the future we'll do that. We're experimenting now, and in the future we're going to make people alive again. Even Hiranyakashipu asked for the benediction from Lord Brahma that he would be immortal. But Lord Brahma can't give that benediction. And eventually he was killed by Lord Nrsingadev. So the soul is there. The soul is the force that's keeping the body alive, that's activating the life. But because when we come in the material world, we are immediately covered over by a false ego. And that false ego has us thinking that I'm this body, kara, and everything is mine, I, me, mine. But the soul, our real identity is Javera Surabhai Nitya Krishna Das. We're the eternal servants of Krishna, where have nothing to do with this body. The soul has nothing to do with this body, but it's only out of illusion, being under the influence of the three modes of material nature, that we think we're this body. So when someone becomes self-realized, he understands he's not this body. We heard in class that the Dachi, the demigod, was Indra needed his bones to make a thunderbolt weapon to kill Vrikashura. So he didn't want to give his bones, but then he agreed to give his bones because he was self-realized and knew he wasn't the body. And Sukadev goes, and Maharaj Parikshit was cursed to die in 7 days by a snake bird, a bite of a snake bird. He also, at the time when he was bitten by the snake bird, he was didn't feel anything or identify. He gave up his identification with his body. So this is examples of people who become self-realized and understand that I'm not this body, Ham Brahmasmi, and this is the Sambandhan Gyan, to understand that we're servants of Krishna. Abhideya is the process of devotional service, and Prajna is the top perfection, how to attain love for Krishna. So sometimes it says here that sometimes people in the beginning practice spiritual practices, they want to take the impersonal process. And impersonalists say that their process is that the devotional service and bhakti-yoga is too easy, and that the impersonal process is better. But they don't want to take to the easier process. And we know Arjuna asked Krishna, which of the two processes, which is better, the personal, impersonal? And Krishna says both are good for liberation, but the impersonal process is very difficult and very troublesome, where the personal process of bhakti yoga is much easier. So even in the Bible it says man is creating the image of God. So we don't accept any theory that God is impersonal. The Muslims want to say God is Naraka, or impersonal. In Jaiva Dharma, there's a conversation between the Vaishnavas and the Muslims, and they say God is impersonal, and that deity worship is Naraka, or a product of the devil. And they, Muslims, Aurangzeb, went all over India, especially UP, breaking the deities in the temples, because he said it was the work of the devil. So many of the original deities that were in Vrindavan had to be shifted to Jaipur, and Madan Mohan's in Karoli, and in Jaipur is Radha Govinda, Radha Vinod, Radha Damodar, and Radha Gopinath. The original deities of Vrindavan were shifted to Jaipur for safety reasons. It's because the Mongols were rulers who were coming and breaking the deities, thinking that God cannot have a form. But if God can't do something, then how can he be God? If there's some energy higher than God, then how can a person be God? The real definition of God is the one supreme person no one's equal to or greater than him. So this talking about Niskam Karma Yoga, which when one gives up all material desires. And it says, Samahama Sudurlava, such a great soul, is very rare. And Prabhupada said, if he could make one pure devotee, he would think his mission successful. So it's not so, Krishna consciousness is a easy process, but it's difficult to attain the highest perfection, which is becoming detached from all become fully detached from the worldly activities. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita says there's a banyan tree which has its roots upward, branches down, and leaves are the Vedic hymn. One who knows this tree does know where the Vedas. It says the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one knows where it begins, where it ends, where its foundation is. But with determination wants to cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment, and therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality Godhead and go back home, back to Godhead. So this detachment is there, and throughout Bhagavad Gita this is being stressed that Arjuna should fight, but not be concerned about the result. Leave the results are up to Krishna. So whatever we do, whatever service we do to our best ability, but the results are up to Krishna. So if something happens, we see everything, and the devotee sees everything as Krishna's mercy. One king was out hunting and he got his thumb cut off. So he came back to his kingdom and he asked his advisor, what do you say about this? I got my thumb cut off. The advisor said, this is Krishna's mercy. So the king got angry, said, you're nonsense. Put him in jail. So the king went out hunting again, and this time he was captured by some Kali worshippers who wanted to sacrifice a man to Kali. They do that. Even today they do that. They sacrifice animals, or sometimes they sacrifice human beings. They want to sacrifice Chadbarat to Goddess Kali, a dull, dumb man. So they were about to sacrifice the king to the Goddess Kali, but then they noticed that he didn't have a thumb. So they said, oh, well, he can't sacrifice this man. He can't sacrifice someone who's missing part of his limbs. So they let the king go. They went back to the king, went back to his advisor and said, yes, what you told me is true. It was Krishna's mercy. Now that I'm still alive. But how I put you in jail, how is that Krishna's mercy? And he said, because the advisor said, because I would have been with you when you went hunting, and they would have captured me and killed me instead of you. So in this way, the mercy of Krishna is there, but the mercy of Guru Krishna Prasade by Bhakti Lata Beach, Yasha Prasada Bhagavat Prasada, Yasha Prasada Narakintu Gopi. To get the mercy of Krishna, you have to get the mercy of the spiritual master. So therefore, we're practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, means we are following the rules and regulations until we come to Nartana Vritti, which means we are free from material contamination. As long as we're still materially contaminated, we cannot get pure devotional service. So Krishna came 5,000 years ago and stressed full surrender. But Mahaprabhu came at the same time, not the same time, but came in the same period, and 5,000 years after Krishna's advent, 500 years ago, and he's the Chana avatar. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Jagannath Puri alone, when he saw the deity of Jagannath, he went into ecstasy and fainted on the floor. And the Chokidar wanted to beat him. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya happened to be there and stopped the Chokidar and took Lord Chaitanya to his house. And Lord Chaitanya, he couldn't understand whether Lord Chaitanya was alive or dead. So he took a cotton swab and held it up to his nose, and it moved slightly, and he could understand that he was in ecstatic trance and that he was not dead. But until his son-in-law Gopinath Acharya came there, explained to him that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality Godhead, and quoted verses from Bhagavatam and Mahabharata, convinced him that Lord Chaitanya was the Yuga avatar. And Krishna Varna Krishnam. Krishna comes as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is not black, he's gold. He has a golden complexion because he comes to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani. And he came to give freely. Namo Mahamanadaya Krishna Prem Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namo Seminaha. He comes to give what no other incarnations give. Other incarnations of Lord Chaitanya are Gaur Narayan, and they give Aishwarya Bhav. But only this Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who comes when Krishna appears, millennium after millennium, is giving Prema Bhakti, or pure love of Krishna, which is available in Golok Vrindavan. So, if one becomes a pure devotee, if one gets free from his anarthas, he can practice Raga Bhakti, which is attachment, and follow in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan. And then in his next life, he can take birth where Krishna's having his road show, his Bilma Lila, on someplace in this universe or other universe, and get trained up further so he can attain pure Prema Bhakti. This is mercy, special mercy that we in this Krishna consciousness movement are getting, that no one else gets in this whole world, that you can't get from any other so-called religions or any other so-called spiritual practices. So we want to stress on the point that God's a person and that we have a loving relationship with that person, but it's dormant in our heart. It has to be awakened, and it can be awakened by the process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, by following the 9 processes of devotional service. So this is why time initiation we make a vow to chant 16 rounds of Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And to follow 4 regulated principles: no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. So if you do that, Prabhupada told his disciples, if they could do that for their whole life, then he would take them back to Godhead. Unfortunately, not all Prabhupada's disciples were able to keep that promise, but some of us did, and we don't know how many are still left on the planet. But if you want to get the mercy of your spiritual master, the mercy of Prabhupada, then you have to follow his instructions. So this is very important, that we follow the instructions of the spiritual master, because he's the via media to take us to Krishna. We can't go to Krishna. No one can go to Krishna alone. We meet people on the street, they say, yes, we know Bhagavad-Gita, we know Krishna. They say all these things, but their activities are they're engaged in sinful activities. They don't have a guru. They're not in any sampradaya, so they don't really know Krishna, and they don't really know Bhagavad-Gita. So we're not fooled by such people. So these are foolish people who will say they know Bhagavad-Gita or they know Krishna, but But even Lord Brahma says he doesn't fully know Krishna. Even Seshanag, who has thousands of hoods, who's always glorifying the Lord's name, fame, form, and quality activities, says he can never come to the end of that. So no one can actually know Krishna in full, but we can get an idea of Krishna by reading Krishna book, by reading the 10th Canto, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, by reading all of Prabhupada's books as a daily activity. Then we can gradually become more and more enlightened about how Krishna consciousness is the only thing. There's nothing else in this world. But Bhaktisiddhanta said, there's nothing missing in this world. Everything is there in this world. The only thing missing in this world is Krishna consciousness. Because the man may dress himself very nicely, but it's simply a decoration for a dead body. You can't understand a person's mind or intelligence until he speaks. So someone may dress very nicely, but as soon as he speaks, you can understand that he's a fool. So we go to people and we flatter them. We say, yes, you're a very intelligent person. Now forget everything you've ever learned and take this book. And then you'll understand what real meaning to life, the real meaning to Bhagavad-Gita, the real meaning to your existence. And we're trying to educate the world. The world has become, through the Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, has become so degraded, and they've twisted the arm of nature in so many ways to pollute the water, pollute the rivers, pollute the air, pollute the food, pollute everything, and make everything topsy-turvy, and make so many things, unnatural things happening. So, because they're not God, because they're demons and they're not God conscious. So in this chapter it says 4 kinds of people who surrender to Krishna, and of all those 4, the jnani, the one who's in full knowledge, he's the best of all. So in this way, we will try to get that, become a jnani, not a Mayavadi jnani, but understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that we should learn, make our hearts soft, Chaitodharpana Marjanam, by chanting the holy name and practicing Krishna consciousness. We have to soften our heart so Krishna can sit in our heart and we can develop our love for Krishna. There's nothing else, no other business in this world but developing our love for Krishna, especially, and since life is short, on Kali Yuga, people only live for 100 years. In past ages, people live for much longer time. So in a short lifetime, we have to try our best to become Krishna conscious and go back to Godhead and not take birth again in the material world. So it says here at the end that in verse 7, 7:17 says, of those, the one who's in full knowledge and always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I'm very dear to him and he's very dear to me. And then 11:40 says, obeisances to you, Arjuna is speaking, obeisance to you from the front, from behind, on all sides. O unbounded power, you are the master of unlimited might, you are all-pervading, and thus you are everything. So this Arjuna saw, after he saw the universal form, he realized that Krishna was everything. So, Krishna is the Sarva Karna Karanam, the cause of all causes, and we should try our best to surrender to Krishna and know that Krishna's God is a person, He can never be impersonal. We're just like man is creating the image of God. We're also, if we have a form, then God must also have a form. We don't accept this Mayavadi interpretation or impersonalism. So we'll stop there. Any comments or questions? Yes.
You have mentioned about Sambandh, Abhiday and Prayojan. Can you please explain it a bit? Sambandh, Abhiday and Prayojan.
He wants to know Sambandha means establishing our relationship with Krishna. Abhideya means the process for establishing that relationship by following the 9 processes of devotional service. And Prayojana means complete perfection. And those are represented by Madan Mohan, Gopinath, Govindaji and Gopinath, Vrindavan. Madan Mohan represents Sambandhan, Govindaji represents Abhideya, and Gopinath represents Prayojana.
Gopinath represents Prayojan.
Yeah, complete perfection.
Big perfection.
So if you have any attachment to society, friendship, and love, then don't go see that boy Govinda, who's playing his flute on the bank of Yamuna and sporting with his gopis. And so these are 3 stages of development.
Gopinath, through Gopinath, we have to go through the Gopinath.
Yeah, you can visit those temples. Anybody else? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad-Gita ki jai.